Imagine waking up one morning and walking into your home. Everything looks normal at first. The furniture is in place, the lights are off, it is quiet. And then you see your boss lying on the floor, face down, not moving. This is what happened to Henry Peavy on the morning of February 1, 1922. Peavy was a valet. He worked for William Desmond Taylor, one of Hollywood's most successful film directors. Taylor lived in a bungalow in Los Angeles, in a neighborhood filled with actors and movie people. When Peavy arrived that morning to start work, he found Taylor dead on the floor. He screamed. The neighbors came running. Someone called for help. But before the police arrived, something strange happened. Paramount Studios showed up first. Not the police, not an ambulance, the studio. And they started cleaning, removing letters, taking bottles of illegal alcohol, telling people what to say, destroying evidence. By the time the Los Angeles Police Department arrived, the crime scene was destroyed. William Desmond Taylor had been shot in the back, and the studio made sure no one would ever find out who did it. 100 years later, the case is still unsolved, and three women's lives were destroyed trying to cover it up. William Desmond Taylor was not who he said he was. His real name was William Cunningham Dean Tanner. He was born in Ireland. He came to America. He got married. He had a daughter. And then, one day in 1908, he disappeared. He left his wife. He left his daughter. He left his life behind. And he reinvented himself as William Desmond Taylor. By 1922, Taylor was one of the most respected directors in Hollywood. He had directed over 40 films. He worked with the biggest stars. He was president of the Motion Picture Directors Association. He was sophisticated, well-read, a gentleman, the kind of person who was invited to parties that most Hollywood people could not get into. But Taylor had secrets, a fake identity, a missing valet who had embezzled from him, women who visited his home at all hours, and an involvement with federal drug investigators that terrified the studios. Because in 1922, Hollywood was already in crisis. Just months before Taylor's murder, comedian Fatty Arbuckle had been put on trial for rape and murder. The trial was a national scandal. Arbuckle was acquitted, but his career was destroyed. Studios were terrified that another scandal would destroy the entire film industry. Women's groups and religious organizations were calling for boycotts, demanding censorship, threatening to shut Hollywood down. And then, William Desmond Taylor was murdered. When Henry Peavy found Taylor's body, he ran outside screaming. The neighbors came. One of them was Edna Purviance, Charlie Chaplin's leading lady. She immediately called Paramount Studios. Not the police, the studio. Why would she do that? Because in Hollywood in 1922, the studio came first, before the law, before the truth, before anything. Within minutes, Charles Ayton arrived. He was the general manager of Paramount Studios, the company Taylor worked for. Ayton walked into Taylor's home and started giving orders. He told Peavy to clean up the blood. He told people to remove any letters they could find. He took all the bootleg alcohol. He instructed everyone on what to say when the police arrived. And when the police finally showed up, the crime scene was already compromised. The doctor who examined Taylor initially said he had died of natural causes. A stomach hemorrhage, nothing suspicious. But when they turned the body over, they found a bullet hole in his back. Taylor had been shot, murdered, and someone had tried to cover it up. The police started asking questions. Who would want to kill William Desmond Taylor? Who had been in his home recently? Who had a motive? And three names kept coming up. Three women whose lives would be destroyed by this investigation. The first woman was Mabel Normand. Mabel was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, a comedic actress who had worked with Charlie Chaplin and Fatty Arbuckle. Beautiful, talented, beloved by audiences. She was also a cocaine addict, and William Desmond Taylor was trying to save her. Mabel had been addicted to cocaine for years. She could not stop, and Taylor, who was in love with her, was desperate to help her. In the weeks before his murder, Taylor had met with federal prosecutors. He offered to help them file charges against Mabel's cocaine suppliers. He wanted to cut off her access to the drug, force her to get clean, save her life. But cocaine trafficking in 1920s Hollywood was a dangerous business. The dealers were connected, violent, and they did not take kindly to people trying to shut them down. On the night of February 1, just hours before his murder, Mabel Normand visited Taylor's home. She came to pick up a book he had borrowed for her. They talked. She left around 7:45 p.m. She was the last person known to see him alive. When the police found out about Mabel's visit, she became a suspect. The press attacked her. They wrote about her drug addiction. They questioned her morals. They destroyed her reputation. Mabel was cleared by the police, but the public did not care. The studios did not care. Her career was over. Within 2 years, her films were pulled from theaters. No one would hire her. Charlie Chaplin supported her financially for the rest of her life, but Mabel never recovered. She died in 1930 of tuberculosis. She was 38 years old. One of her last words was, "I do not hate to go without knowing what happened to poor Billy Taylor." The second woman was Mary Miles Minter. Mary was 19 years old in 1922. She had been a child star, a teenage actress. Hollywood was grooming her to be the next Mary Pickford, and she was obsessed with William Desmond Taylor. When the police searched Taylor's home after the murder, they found something disturbing. Love letters from Mary Miles Minter, dozens of them, hiding in his riding boots. The letters were explicit, sexual, desperate. Mary had written to Taylor constantly, begging him to love her, telling him she could not live without him, threatening to hurt herself if he rejected her. Taylor had kept the letters hidden, because if they had been discovered, both of their careers would have been ruined. Mary was 19, Taylor was 49. She was marketed as America's sweetheart, a virginal innocent. And here she was writing sexually explicit letters to a man 30 years older than her. When the letters were made public during the investigation, Mary's career ended instantly. She was fired from her films. Her contracts were cancelled. The studios blacklisted her. She left Hollywood and became a recluse. She lived until 1984, spending most of her life hiding from the scandal that had destroyed her. But Mary was not the main suspect. Her mother was. Charlotte Shelby was Mary Miles Minter's mother, and she was a monster. Charlotte had pushed Mary into acting when she was a child. She controlled every aspect of her daughter's life. She took all of Mary's money. She made all of her decisions. Mary was terrified of her mother, and Charlotte knew it. When Charlotte found out about Mary's obsession with William Desmond Taylor, she was furious. Not because she cared about Mary's well-being, but because if Mary married Taylor, Charlotte would lose control of her. And more importantly, she would lose access to Mary's money. Charlotte confronted Taylor multiple times. She told him to stay away from her daughter. She threatened him. And Charlotte Shelby owned a gun, a .38 caliber pistol, the same caliber that killed William Desmond Taylor. For years, Charlotte was the prime suspect. Investigators believed she had shot Taylor to protect her financial interest in her daughter. In 1929, she gave a lengthy interview denying any involvement. Shortly after, she and one of her other daughters left the country and spent years in Europe. But Charlotte Shelby was never charged, and she took whatever she knew to her grave. There was one other suspect, a man who disappeared the day of the murder and was never seen again, Edward Sands. Sands had worked as Taylor's valet before Henry Peavy. He was a con artist, a forger, a serial deserter from the US military. In the summer of 1921, while Taylor was in Europe, Sands forged signatures on Taylor's checks. He stole money. He wrecked Taylor's car, and then he vanished. Some investigators believe Sands had returned to Los Angeles in early 1922, that he was blackmailing Taylor, that Taylor had threatened to turn him into the police, and that Sands had shot him to silence him. One of Taylor's neighbors claimed she saw a man leaving Taylor's bungalow around the time of the murder. She described someone who could have been Sands, but Sands was never found. He disappeared completely. Some theorists believe Sands was the killer. Others believe he was a convenient scapegoat, a way for the studios to blame someone who could not defend himself. Either way, Edward Sands vanished, and the case stayed unsolved. For weeks after the murder, the Los Angeles Police Department investigated. They interviewed witnesses, they collected evidence, they built a case, and then they were told to stop. In 1968, a retired detective named William Michael Cahill gave an interview about the Taylor case. He had been assigned to the investigation in 1922, and he said something chilling. We were doing all right. Then, about a week later, we got the word to lay off the case. Someone ordered the police to stop investigating William Desmond Taylor's murder. Who gave that order? No one knows for certain. But the most likely answer is that the studios did. Paramount, MGM, and the other major Hollywood studios were terrified of what the investigation might uncover. If it was revealed that Taylor was helping federal prosecutors bust cocaine dealers, the public would know that Hollywood had a massive drug problem. If it was revealed that a 19-year-old actress was having an affair with a 49-year-old director, the moral outrage would be overwhelming. If it was revealed that a stage mother had murdered a man to protect her financial control over her daughter, the entire industry would be seen as corrupt and predatory. So the studios made a decision. They shut the investigation down. They buried the evidence. They paid off whoever needed to be paid off. And William Desmond Taylor's killer walked free. 100 years later, the murder of William Desmond Taylor is still unsolved. Mabel Normand died at 38, her career destroyed, never knowing who killed the man she loved. Mary Miles Minter lived until she was 84, but she spent most of those years as a recluse, hiding from the scandal that had ruined her life. Charlotte Shelby died without ever being charged. If she killed Taylor, she got away with it. Edward Sands was never found. If he killed Taylor, he disappeared into history. And the studios that covered it all up, they survived, they thrived, they became more powerful than ever. Because that is how Hollywood worked in 1922. The studios protected themselves. They destroyed evidence. They controlled the narrative. They decided who would be punished and who would walk free. William Desmond Taylor was shot in the back in his own home, and no one was ever charged. Not because there were no suspects, but because the people with power decided that the truth was too dangerous. If you want more stories about how Hollywood protected itself by destroying the people who got in the way, subscribe. Because the golden age of Hollywood is built on secrets, and some of those secrets are still buried today.